Hello. Today I wanted to, I've been actually asked by someone to cover some of the wood pins you get from a woodcraft store. This isn't talking about a big pin, which all you need to do is remove the guts, wrap it in clay, pop in the oven, keep it straight while it cools, but actually some nice pins. So like you see here. So these are pins, in this case, you turn them at the base or there's other designs where you turn the top piece. And you get this nice looking pin. For the most part, it's not too tricky. Uh, getting it, the big trick is getting it to where it matches on the ends. And I've got some pointers I'll talk to you about that. But let's put this off to the side. And when you go to your wood store to buy one of these, you're going to get a package. And this one came from Woodcraft, obviously. There are other places, and I'll put some notes in the comment section about what you get, where to go and what to get. You get all of these little parts. Uh, okay. And so you've got the top piece, which is going to be this guy. You get a bottom piece, which is obviously at the other end. You'll see there's a little tiny spring in there. I don't know if you can see it or not, doesn't matter. You get the actual pin, and you get this, which is the mechanism. We'll talk about all that. And also in there, you get a brass tube. The brass tube is what we really want to focus on for most of today. Uh, Now, while I'm saying this, this is called a Wall Street pin. There's also a Gatsby. That's the pretty much the same design for a Sierra, and it's going to depend on where you buy the pin. So the real trick here is all you're going to do is cover this brass tube with your polymer clay, whatever design you want, whatever you think you want to do. And then you've got to worry about the seam. And I think some of these, I've got a seam. You can't see it too well, but there's a seam right here. So what I've done is I've put the clip over the seam, so it's pretty much gone. So obviously, if if you're going to just wrap it with clay, I've got a piece of old clay here. That's pretty good. Trying to make sure it's warm because I'm going to wrap this around there. Just to get, obviously it's quite simple. I need to make sure I've got enough to cover the entire thing, top to bottom. Take the clay. Put, I'm going to cut the clay at an angle because I got a seam there. I'm going to put it so that the thin side is against the brass tube. And before I do that, what I have started doing is to take some liquid clay and put it on there to act as a glue. And there are several tricks that I'll talk about in a few minutes. But having that on there, acting as a glue, I got a bobble in there. That's okay. I'm just gonna wrap this around the clay. And as you always do when you're wrapping something, come down to the end, give it a little bit of a nudge to see where it's coming in and see where it's gonna come together there. And then you take your blade, you kind of cut it at an angle, you said, and I did that just exactly wrong. And you know what you're doing? You probably caught that. I need to cut it at that angle and then wrap it around. And I didn't quite get it matched, but that's okay. It's clay, and you can just kind of squeeze it and get it together. Now, that's not all there is to it. And as you can see, I've got a nice little seam there, especially since I'm working with gold clay. As you do this, and it helps if the clay is a little softer than this piece was, it cracks a little bit occasionally, and again, a good fingernail will clear that up. And then what I do is, at this point in time, You can come down, find out where the brass tube is, and just cut right around there and match up on the brass tube. And then do that on the other end. And this isn't all you need to do. I've got a nice piece there. It's going to give me, if I was doing just the gold look, that would be fine. And again, I'm only demonstrating with the gold. I'm going to take this apart in just a minute. But the other problem you've got is that these things need to fit together in a very specific way. And if you just stop with what you've done there, you're going to find out that you probably don't have the right thickness of clay. I did this one on the thick setting of the POS machine. With the Sierra and the Wall Street pins, you can take the nib, this piece here, and put it in there, and you will see I've got quite a little ridge here. Now I've got choices. I can just kind of roll it if I want and get it down to where it fits. And as I roll it, smooth it, pinch it, squeeze it, make it smaller, and get it to fit without too much trouble. Amp it up a little bit now and again until it finally fits. Or you can leave it there and sand it, but then you've got to sand it and keep guessing how you're sanding it. What I actually like to do myself when I'm doing this is there's something called a bead or a pin mandrel, which I have right here next to me. I had it just a minute ago before I started this demo. If I find that, I'll use it. But anyway, there is a mandrel you can put this on. And with that on there, and put the right end pieces on the mandrel, you can get exactly the spacing you need. Since I'm not finding the mandrel quickly, we will just keep going. Now, in reality, I could have done this in a different way. And because I did this on the thickest setting of the pasta machine, and I know that that's way too thick. On my machine, I think, if I remember right, the number 3 setting is about the right setting. So I'm going to run that through on a number 3. It's still a little tacky from the clay, the liquid clay. I'll run it around, find my seam, cut my seam, and now I didn't cut it too thick. Come back, cut it again, and now I can get it on there and bring it together, seal it up, get rid of that seam. You see, I'm using gold just for the sake of the demo. I would actually do something a little more elaborate if I was going to finish this particular pen. But come around, cut that off. I'm just going to check the fit. And that fit is really close. So the third setting on my pasta machine is about what I need. And you can see there's not a lot of clay around there. Now there are other things you can do, and I will play some games at this point since you've got the basic idea. And there are some other pins I'm going to be working with. Let me take this off. You got a pile of gold clay here I'm going to work with for just a minute, because there are some other tricks and techniques that I've also used when I'm doing this. Depending on what you wish to accomplish and whether or not you want the seam. And if you will notice, let's see, that one's got a seam. That one's got a seam. Some of these don't. This one has no seam. That's a piece of special trick. This one has no seam. This one actually is Mokimigane. So I think I've got a, let me see. Nope, it's solid. It's just all that. I did a faux abalone Mokimigane and wrapped it around the pin. And it comes out pretty nice. Another point I want to make, but later. So I can take the clay, and again, you've got an idea how much it takes. It doesn't take a lot of clay. So I'm going to cut this down to a really small piece. So I'm not playing a whole lot. I've got a small piece of clay there. Oops, said, no, I don't really want that much. I've done this next trick a few times where I didn't want the seam, but I wanted some sort of a marbled look. So I take the clay. This case I've got gold. I think I've got enough. Yes, I've got enough. I'm gonna take some blue, which is stiff at this point. So excuse me for a minute while I get it warmed up. And yes, for me, that does warm up the clay. Once the machine wants to get it to convince it that to do what I really want it to do. And I'm going to roll that up. Nice log. I'm looking at it. These logs are way too big for what I want to do. So I'm going to be cutting them down a bit. Oh boy. What I'm doing is I want 3 logs that are about a little bit bigger in diameter than my brass tube, but I only need uh, less than, well, a little more than, say, roughly a half of the width of the tube. There's something that's a little bit thicker. So that's kind of what I'm doing here is figure out how much clay I'm going to use. And the marbling clay, this works nice. Still not thin enough. Make that a little thinner. Okay. I want about that much of the blue. And I've got kind of a turquoise here. Hope these 3 go together well. Hope they play nice together. Them all rolled out about the same. Get my length cut right. Oops. Now we can have fun. I'm going to take these 3. I'm going to marble them up. And again, there's some options as you do that. So obviously squeeze the ear out of the middle when you bring them together. I can tell that some of them are softer than others, which is okay. We'll deal with that in a minute. We'll get them fairly consistent, rolled out nice and smooth. Check my size. Oh, good size. Okay. Now there are lots of things you can do at this point for marbling. And I'm going to do a couple things here just to get it well marbled. I'll probably show you a trick that someone else showed me a long time ago. That started. Make sure I've got everybody playing nice with each other and rolling, working the same. Okay, now that we've got that, I'm going to bring it back together somewhat. 'Cause I only need a little more than that guy is long. And then a little fatter is nice. Okay, there we go. From there, what what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it in the same direction repeatedly, but dragging one end and not the other. So that this end is going to get smaller and smaller, in theory. The other is going to stay nice and fat. That's going to twist the insides as well as the outside. Nice little twist in there. It's going to create a problem in a few minutes for me, but I will deal with that when I get there. Okay, that should be a nice twist because I need this back into a particular shape. I'm going to kind of press it together a little bit, and then I'm going to cut it in half and see what the insides look like after I give this a twist on the end. We'll see what it looks like on the inside. But sometimes the inside is much prettier than the outside. Usually is actually. And that's the inside of that beastie, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to go with that. I'll flip it around, squeeze it together where it matches up. Hide the seam I just created. Hide the backside because I don't want to see it. It's clay, so you can manipulate it, do all kinds of things to it, and it will still come out reasonably nice. We'll roll it back to the log. It's coming up odd shape. And I need to get that thing roughly the same diameter as that, or the same length as that, a little bit longer. I'll have to excuse my color sense here. Okay, that's looking like it's going to work. Now comes the tricky part. Making my ends flat. This is going to help in a minute. Because what I'm really trying to do is make one of these and hide the seam so that you can't, so that there is no obvious seam. And to me, the easy way to do that was to simply eliminate the seam, not put a seam in there. And to get it without a seam, I grabbed one of my needle tools. Grabbed one of my needle tools and poked a hole right down through the middle to kind of act as a guide. And felt it as I go through. And to keep things consistent, straight, and smooth and consistent, and make sure it's going to go through there right. This is going to help guide things as they go. And if you probably figured out what I'm going to do next, because once I've got this through there, there it is. It is through. Just a little bit longer on the brass. I'll take my brass tube, just kind of push him through there. Since the needle is going to hold everything reasonably straight, it helps to screw it in. I don't ask, just it does help, trust me. I said doing this. I've really done this before. I'm gonna take that out. Well, great, it's not working this time. It's going in. Yes, it does. Come on. Straighten her back in there because it is, I can feel it wobbling on me. There are just several ways to do this, and this is one of them that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. And there it is. We separated the clay there momentarily. I can fix that. Not too much trouble. Anyway, you got the idea. Should be able to push that all the way down onto that brass tube. See the brass tube come out the other end. And there it is. So I got the brass tube coming out. These spots I need to clean up because things broke. Yes, I've got clay in the middle of the brass tube, which you never want. At least don't bake it in there. So we will work that out, and that isn't too hard to get out of there. Said my tool, I can push around the edges and work that clay out of the center of the brass tube. Get it out of there. A lot of clay in there. There we go. Got that piece out. Now, if I want, I can clean this up a little bit, work it up, bring it down, smooth it up, clean it up. And it is obviously way thicker than it needs to be, but that's okay because then I can handle. I can roll it. Okay, I'm doing now. Bring it down to the other end. Careful as you roll because it will separate. No, I have not put any liquid clay in the middle of this. And what I have been known to do in that case is once it is baked, I will then take it. I can, with especially while it's still warm, take the tube out of the clay, let it. So I actually just break the seal. I may put it back in at that point so that it retains the right shape. And when it's done, I will take it out again, put a little bit of super glue on there, insert it back into the brass tube so that when it is done, it will not come out. I say that because I have over the years, I've got some pens that I've been using for over 10 years. And the center of the clay has broken loose from the tube if I didn't glue them. So I either use the liquid clay or the super glue to make sure the tube stays in and stays fixed. You don't want it to come undone. Anyway, that one, a little bit more work cleaning it up. Got a few spots that need to be cleaned up. The ends need to be worked. And personally, some people like the pen to be straight. I like it to have a little bit of a bulge. If I'm going to hold it in this position, I like there to be a little bit of a bulge back here. So I'll go ahead and make this section thinner and let that one bulge a little bit. Being careful not to get it too thin. But as you recall, I can get it down quite a bit thinner than what it is while leaving a bulge on the other end so that I've got that little bit of it just feels better in my hands is really what I'm saying. So a little bit of cleanup work on the ends here because as I'm squeezing, I'm pressing the clay out. And it's got to go somewhere, so it's going to go off the end. Take one, check for size. That one's about right. That one's a little fat yet. I can reduce him down some more. At that point, That should do it. So if you want one without any seams, you've got that. Now putting this together gets to be a bit of a trick too. There aren't too many tricks to it, but let me see. I've got one here that I need to put together. So we will do that. We'll just make one. Oh, I like that one. This is actually wood, not polymer clay, but we will put it together as though we're polymer clay because it's the same thing. To do that, years ago, I purchased this gizmo. Uh, it's rigged up so that when this lever here has a piston that it moves back and forth. I've got a lever arm, that goes on the end of that arm so I can move it. And I want this guy to slide back a bit. This has been used way too much and it's starting to not function well. First thing to do is to get the top with a clip, and you want this to rest inside this plastic piece, because the metal will mar it. And you want it to be spaced so that when this is in that position, so it's just a little bit past the vertical, a little bit in there, everything is going to fit right. Sit there and decide where you want the clip to go. I want it there. And I've always put the clip down when I'm doing this in case something slips. Get that position right. It'll go there. I'm gonna tighten this piece up. And this thing is getting old, so it takes a little bit of encouragement to tighten it. And now I can put the pin in there, getting positioned right, and getting positioned right. There. There's a little recess in the top piece where that top sit and the plastic piece for the top sits. And then you can just press it together, he said. Not pressing together. Of course not. It never works on a demo. One more time with feeling. Why are we not going in? There we go. And in this case, I didn't quite get it all down. So I will move this a little bit closer. Tighten it up. And try you can see there's a gap right here. It shouldn't be. But I can do that by just repeating the process. And there it's tight. That's all it takes for that piece. Assemble the rest is actually quite easy at this point. I've got the nib. With the mechanism, I've got the pin and the mechanism. I'm going to put, sorry. Okay, yeah, that's right. I'm trying to remind myself of how to do this. That screws in. So I want to put the mechanism and the threads on here, put the pin in there, put that into the nib. That shouldn't have happened. my pin, basically, what I'm going to do, the pin in there, cap on, thread it down. This should just press together like that, and you've got your pin. Now, something is slightly wrong with this one. I don't know what. You have to take the mechanism apart and figure it out. But as you twist it, the pin should either extend or retract. Like this one. If I twist it, you see the tip comes out, turn it the other way, it retracts. One of the problems you've got is you may not be able to see it, but there's a little bit of a piece of plastic or wax on the end of that. Just to protect it when shipping, and you will need to take that off because it will not write with that on there. And that is really all you need to do for one of those. There is another pin, and I've got that here that I want to talk about briefly. This is the slimline or the 7mm. This one has got two brass tubes. You know, get all the parts out of there. I'm going to set those aside for the moment. It comes with two brass tubes and a clip. The clip is optional. The mechanism is a lot smaller. And I'm going to do this. I need these parts out as well. There is the nib in. There is a center band on this. And there is the top. Now, when you're doing this, the trick is when you cover it with clay, if you don't think about it, you typically end up getting clay. Well, if you think about wrapping one sheet of clay around the whole thing and then cutting it where the two come together, you're going to end up with a problem because your eyeball wants there to be a break in there because you're going to put this little guy in the middle so that he's going to go in between those two. Let me do that again. Let me do that again. So he's going to go through those guys this way. And so your eyeball doesn't want there to be a continuous line. So that this line here has got to come across, flow through that little piece, and then come out on the other end. And so you need to think about that when you're making one of these. Now, putting it together is a little trickier too. And I will show you how to do how some of those tricks are done. And I put these together again, taking my gizmo, brass tubes. I've covered the brass tubes now with clay. I'm going to take this guy, which is the top piece, attach him to the clip, and it's a snug fit so that when you push him on there, and it may not go all the way on the first time. And I have messed myself up, and I want this to go. Pieces don't line up that way. They do line up that way. Okay, so that's how my pieces line up. Keep that in mind when you're doing this. It will be important. So I want that to go together. Get this guy together again. Make sure my clip is where I want him. Move this mechanism up, tighten it. This is the easy part. Tighten it and then set it in. And it should be able to just press and set. And oh, and came together nicely. That was the easy piece. This one is trickier. Actually, no, it's yes, yeah, no. Let me do that first. Let me do this first, because otherwise I'm going to break something. So take the tip, get it in place, make sure. Yes, it's the way I want it to go. Now there is, like I said, there's a hole in this piece of plastic, and so the pin tip fits in that hole nicely. So as I bring the arm up and break it, bring it down, start pressing it together, and it comes together nicely. So far, so good. Don't worry about the center band. This is the trick, he said. And before I do that, I'm going to make sure I know what I'm doing. Just to make sure, know which way this thing's got to go together. And I am not sure. Yes, I am sure. So this has got to go this way in there. Now, when you're doing this, it is very, very easy to push that piece too far in. So be very, very careful about that. And you'll see me do this maneuver several times before I'm happy. Tighten that down. Now, if you notice, there's a little ridge right here where my thumb is. I'm going to press until that ridge is about to disappear. That's about to disappear. And it's not quite there. Now loosen this, move it a bit, tighten it down, and bring it up a little more. And my grip is slipping. You need to work on the mechanism. But you then put the pin in there and check it to see if it comes out. So you should be able to twist this and have the pin come out, and it just barely comes out, telling me I need to push it farther in. So I'm going to work this mechanism a bit. This guy is getting old and tired and grumpy, so it doesn't always work. I'm going to press it until very carefully. Okay, now that ridge is still barely visible there. Having measured it, I think that should be close. Okay, in this case, it looks like I can go ahead and bury that ridge. So here we go, one more press. Just a little bit more. Not a rib, but get the idea. And put that in there and okay, and I've got a little piece of plastic on the tip that needs to come off. There's a mess on there where I did dribble the ink. He said, okay, now that should, right, you can see the the tip is extracted, so I can just now just press it together. Make sure I get it pressed together the way I want. Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Put the centerpiece on and then press it together. And I'm going to give it, I want that piece to line up. So I'm going to twist it around until I get that little stripe I put in there where it looks like it continues the crust. And that is assembled. Um, Now, I've had some trouble with these, and I'm doing a combination of things. Sometimes if I really get paranoid, I will, before I assemble it, I will put a thin coat of CA glue on the outside of the polymer clay. Uh, if these are going to be used heavily and used for many, many years, um, the polymer clay does tend to wear over time with use, and that's never good. So I will sand this starting. I usually start around 320. Sand it up to 1,000 or 2,000 grit sandpaper. Get it really smooth. Buff it, and then I may or may not put the CA glue on there. Just depends on how I feel about it, what kind of use I think it's going to get. Some of these I know people are just putting them out for decoration, never using them, in which case it's okay. Otherwise, I will put some CA glue on there just to make sure it stays safe, it doesn't get anywhere. And those are what it, just to give you an idea, this is, again, that same technique. And what uh, I do the faux wood or the striped look for the gold and copper, put them together on the table. I will cut a straight line, a diagonal through there, start wrapping it on the clay, take a thin piece of graphite, because I'm working with Primo, and do the same technique with strapping on it. Cut a strip that's maybe 3/8 of an inch wide, put it against the cut edge on this piece, make sure it's tight, use my fingernail to smooth it down, wrap the clay around and find out where the seam is, and then cut the seam and finish by bringing the ends together, again, sealing it with my fingernail. You get a nice look on that. And that's how I get this look. And you'll notice that you can tell there's a little bit of a bulge right here simply because that's what I like to do. What I did in this case was I put a thin piece of clay right about here in the brass tube and tapered it on the ends so that I have a bulge that tapers on the ends. Um, this is leftovers from a class I took from Lindley Haunani. I thought, yeah, why not put them on a piece of clay? This one obviously is just marbled clay, and it does have CA glue on it. And again, this I just wrapped around and put the seam there under the pin clip. Uh, as I mentioned before, this is a Mokumigane technique, and I just put slices on there until it was thick enough and baked it, sanded it down to where I needed it. And so there is no seam anywhere on this one. Um, this one, without going into a lot of detail, I took thin sheets of gold clay. I'd put them down on the table, put the tube in there, so I had the hole in the middle. Take another thin sheet of gold clay, put it on top with a slightly different angle, and again, cut it with a tube and keep doing that until I had a nice thick stack built up. And the tube fits inside, so I just think in this case, I actually super glued the tube inside the pin, cut off the outside, trimmed it, and then did the usual trim, bake, sand, and buff, get the look on it. and it too has got CA glue on the outside. So that is how I've made these pens. I have made a lot more. Uh, some of them have been sold, some of them given as gifts. Uh, any technique you do with clay, any surface technique, works fine. If you're into doing canes, uh, there's a lady whose first name is Tony and last name I'm losing at the moment, Louisiana, who covers pens like this with polymer clay. She does a marvelous job with her cane work. Um, all kinds of shapes, leaves, flowers, butterflies, just amazing work. Anyway, that's today's demo. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll do more something else next month. Thank you much. Bye.